you kill your daughter?
No, never. And, there's nothing with any logic that could, you would have to start with why. How, when, who, and there's just simply, the answer to any of these things is there's nothing to suggest anything. So, no, that's an emphatic no.
Some more breaking news for you this morning. We're just hearing that a search is underway for a 3-year-old British girl who's gone missing in the Algarve area of Portugal, and she went missing last night. Hundreds of people have been searching for the girl, and that search continuing this morning. So we will try to get as much on that for you as soon as we can, that missing girl in Lutz, and we will bring it to you as soon as we get further detail.
Words cannot describe the anguish and despair that we are feeling as the parents of our beautiful daughter Madeleine. We request that anyone who may have any information related to Madeleine's disappearance, no matter how trivial, contact the Portuguese police and help us get her back safely. Please, if you have Madeleine, let her come home to her mummy, daddy, brother and sister.
The Portuguese police have been searching throughout the day, perplexed and baffled like so many here. For fingerprints that might point to a suspect, there appear to be no clues and no obvious leads. Britain's ambassador to Portugal would not put his weight behind the idea this was definitely a kidnapping. Is your working assumption that this is a case of an abduction?
I don't think we can make any assumptions at this stage.
Mark Warner is a holiday brand trusted by many British families, and this video footage filmed here last week shows the care that staff take to keep track of their youngest customers.
As I think people are aware, we were checking regularly on the children, and it was during one of my checks that I discovered she'd gone. I'm sure any parent will realise how that felt.
And we've been reassured by the fact in the thousands of messages from people who've either done exactly the same or said they would have done the same. And for us, it really wasn't very much different to having dinner in your garden and the proximity of the location. I think it's fair to say that, the guilt that we feel having not been there at that moment, irrespective of whether we had been in the other bedroom or not, will never leave us.
Do you know what? This is all investigation. I need to speak to the police. All your questions are about the investigation. And we can't comment on them.
Zoe?
No. We can't answer questions about this investigation.
Both parents of Madeleine McCann are now considered formal suspects by the Portuguese police authorities.
Kate and Jerry McCann have both been today declared arguido.
Suspected of killing his daughter of her body, but neither he nor his wife have been charged with any crime. And though they must both fear what lies ahead, for now they remain free. Earlier in the day, they'd watched as Kate McCann left after her second day of intense questioning. At the beginning of the 5-hour interview, she was told she was being designated a suspect, and according to her family, she was made an extraordinary offer. Confessed to accidentally killing Madeleine, and she'd serve no more than 2 years in jail.
I cannot love Madeleine more than I love her. I would never have taken a risk. It was something that wasn't even a decision. That's how safe it felt.
We were making regular checks. We were going into the apartment, always quiet, every night.
Was Madeleine upset the night before about being left alone? Had she had a moment and got out of bed?
Madeleine made a comment in passing that, where were you when I cried? Not just to Mummy, by the way, just generally. it just seemed a bit odd. I mean, it was a very kind of passing remark, and we just thought she doesn't usually wake up, and she woke up, that means that, you know, she must have fallen back asleep very quickly. And then she moved on. You know, she moved on.
Anybody with young children will understand that children cry, they wake up at night. During that week, there was one night, and we can't give too much detail because it's part of the investigation file, but there was one night where Madeleine had come through and one of the other twins was crying. So, you know, and when she did mention it to us and we asked her about it, and she just dropped, she was completely fine. And we thought, was it when they were bathing, getting them, you know, first putting them down in that period when they're really tired? Of course, with hindsight, in the context of what happened, of Madeleine being abducted, it's put in a very different light, and it's put in a very different light to us. And of course, we emphasise that.
If Madeleine hadn't been abducted, we'd never have thought that comment again.
Hello everyone, welcome. It's the 15th anniversary of Madeleine McCann going missing. Probably the most famous missing persons case, and I'm really honoured to have the authority on Madeleine McCann here to discuss this. Liz, also known as HiDeHo, how are you?
I'm just fine, thanks there. Should I call you Rabid?
You can call me Rabid.
Okay, thanks. Nice to be here. Thanks for inviting me. That was really good of you.
Oh, you're welcome. So I've got on the screen here a quote from William of Ockham. And why do I have it there? There's a kind of rule of thumb that exists in science and philosophy known as the law of parsimony, known as Occam's razor. All things being equal, the simplest solution tends to be the best one. And I think it applies to true crime in general. All things being equal, the outcome that has the least amount of assumptions tends to be the true outcome. In order to believe that this was an abduction, you have to make a lot of exceptional assumptions. If Madeleine was abducted, then they are the most unlucky parents that ever was, because it looks like a simulation. There is zero evidence of an abduction, and we're going to go through the timeline of this. I know that that you, Liz, that's kind of what you focus on, right?
Oh, absolutely. That's I spent many years, of course, taking in everything, but the timeline is something I studied for 4 years. Separated all of the witness statements from the friends and compared them by hour, by minute. And that led me to be able to see the discrepancies. And as you were saying on Occam's razor, I have never looked at something to make speculation on what may have happened. The way I've managed to do it is by having the files and the details actually tell me. That's what I base it on.
Concentrate on the actual facts, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
This was 2007, Praia de Luz in southwest Portugal. April the 28th is when they arrived on I think it was on a Saturday, and they were due to stay for a week. And Madeleine officially went missing on March the 3rd. I think it was the second last day before they were due to return.
Yes, that's right.
And Madeleine was 1 week away from being 4 years old. Madeleine had her two siblings, Sean and Amelie, twins, 2 years of age. And it was a really small resort, the Ocean Club Holiday Resort.
Yeah, it was actually a lot smaller than people realize. Many people have been to visit, and every one of them say it's not as large as it looks. So it would be different to what we all imagine. At least myself, it certainly looks bigger than what apparently it is.
So this is the resort here. So you have the famous tapas bar where they dined after the second night. I think the first night they dined in the Millennium a little further off. I think the resort had a few locations that were separate from this confined area. Maybe like a 5-10 minute walk to the Millennium restaurant. And they
Yeah.
decided after the first night it'd be easier to just dine here. You can see there the distance. I think, is it 50 meters as the crow flies?
I think it's something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a 1 minute walk from here round this way to the back patio door. And it's a 2 minute walk to go up here to the front door, which is round this way over
That's
there.
right.
These 4 apartments that the infamous Tapas 7 or Tapas 9 stayed in. So obviously Jerry and Kate were in this apartment here on the corner.
Yeah.
On the first floor was David Payne and his wife.
Yes.
Matthew Oldfield and Rachel were next door, 5B.
Yes, it was Matthew and Rachel in that. Yeah, the one you're showing right now.
Yeah, so they were there.
Russell and Jane were in that further one.
Russell and Jane were over there. And so after the first night, when they went to the Millennium restaurant, they decided to dine here, and they kind of had a routine where they would go back and check on their kids. They all decided to leave their kids in the apartments, right? They decided not to take up the option of the babysitting facility that was on the campus, right?
Well, that's right. But also, which I'll get into, is the question as to whether they really did leave the children alone. So I'll get into that later. Can I just mention one thing while you have this photo up? It's one of the original, from the original time. The 2 orange canopies down at the bottom is actually where the children had high tea. So when they were picked up by the parents, they were all in there and signed out from that area, not from the creche itself.
Where did they have the high tea? Was it in this area?
Where the 2 orange canopies are. Yeah, yeah.
Ah, okay.
The canopies are no longer there, but you've got an original picture there. So that's where a lot of people think when they pick them up from the creche that they, at night, in the evening, afternoon, that it was from the creche that they were in. But no, all of the children went to this area. So this is where you have to keep in mind that there was a lot of children there. From all of the twins were there, and all the other children all congregated in that area. So it's not as easy to see about them being picked up. Questions on that, which I'll get to.
Okay. And what was their general routine? Like, they would drop off the kids. I think was the creche over here near the reception?
No, the creche is to the left there. I think it's out of the picture. Well, the twins creche is to the left. The Maddie's Kids Club was about 10 minutes away to the right.
Over here somewhere?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, down. Actually, I did send you a locations video, but it might be too long. It's you can check it out on my channel. If
I
you
can
want
play
to
that. I can play that now, actually. Give me a sec. Wow, I didn't realize it was so disparate. You know, the locations were so far apart.
Yeah. Okay, so that makes me feel good. I did that. It was quite a long, when you look at it, it was quite a long video, but hopefully it does give you some context as to where they all are. And there we have the files.
Yeah.
And may I just say that something which most people know, not everybody follows, is the fact that there's 40,000 files. You can see the files that are there. Now, when they were released in 2008, sorry, immediately the forum called the Maddie Case Files, the admin and members got together and voluntarily translated as many files as we needed. They were still translating 4 years later. And because of that, we have, in the Maddie community, we have an unwritten rule that we don't make money from Maddie, apart from the fact that we wouldn't want to make money from what happened to her anyway. Had they not translated the files, we wouldn't be able to do the research that we do. And to show appreciation, we've never, ever made any money. And anybody that does, and to this day, in HiDeHo Controversy, our Facebook group, which thanks to Cherry, it keeps us going there, we still don't allow any videos that make money from Maddie. So yeah, that was important. That was really important, because I mean, look at the amount of files that anybody who says they've read the files, don't believe them.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we were all so grateful to all of them that volunteered to translate them.
I think what I'd like to do, if I can just quickly do a straw poll of everyone that's in chat here. If you can type a 1 if you think that the parents, Jerry and Kate, are culpable. Type a 2 if you think they're innocent and it was an abduction. I'll be interested to see kind of the general consensus. Because I have to admit, Liz, when, like, I still remember when this occurred, I believed them. I really did. You know, they seemed genuine to me. But as you look back years later, you know, with the benefit of hindsight, it seems to me that what was genuine from them was the fact that possibly they had started to process her death. And there's obvious grief there, you know, because they knew she was dead, right? And I think that is what was coming across to everyone else, is them being panicked and fearful about her being kidnapped, right?
That's very perceptive of you, because not a lot of people realize that. They think because they see them upset that it's because she's been abducted. But well, as most people know, of course, I follow along with what the police, the Portuguese police, have issued in the files. And that is that Maddie died in the apartment. The parents simulated her abduction. Parents hid her body and they simulated her abduction. And everything that I have researched over the years have never questioned that. There's nothing I've ever come across to show any different to what the Portuguese police, along with Gonçalo Amaral, claim, that she died in the apartment and they hid her body and then simulated the abduction. So, yeah, of course they'd be grieving because she died, according to the Portuguese police.
Yeah. You wanna
on the first
show the very first interview that they did, which I think
Yeah.
was a month. Was it a month later, Liz? Is that right?
To be honest, I initially I didn't hear about being in Canada. I didn't hear about it at the immediate time that it happened. And the way I found out was I was hosting a expats forum, and somebody brought it up and asked my opinion. And they showed me a video. Oh no, they didn't show me a video, but the first thing I asked was, in the interviews, was the mother, Kate, crying? Did she have tears? I still have that post that comment that I sent them. And so at that point, I decided that if I was going to give my opinion in this forum that we had, I needed to find out for myself. And well, the rest is history. Once I started looking, it just became a passion to see why. I saw discrepancies immediately, and that has really been my focus. Discrepancies in the timeline, and
Okay.
I've never changed.
Okay, so we'll get into the discrepancies and your theory that whatever happened occurred prior to the 3rd of May, right? That's your.
Well, yes, and
right?
I haven't addressed that, but I also want to say one thing: is it's very, very important that anybody who does believe in what they believe, that she was abducted, it's really important not to question that with people. That's their belief, and they are absolutely within their rights to believe that. All I would say is that they check the details, and they may find differently if they look at some of the circumstances around it. But it is important to respect people's opinions on it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And what I found personally is, like, when I try and strip the emotion away from it, you know, the fact that they come across credible to me in interviews, but when I actually just, you know, coldly look at the facts, it doesn't look good for them, you know, and I can't deny that at all.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because at one point we had an analyst. Can't remember the name of. Well,
Peter Hyatt.
Pardon? No,
Peter Hyatt,
not Peter Hyatt. We had somebody who used to come on and let us know what he thought of the interviews and things like that. Then one day I was speaking to him personally, and as I was showing him, actually, a portion of the video that you didn't show, where the video was from Australia, where Jerry had said, no, we didn't kill her or whatever. Earlier in that, he says something about getting, can't remember the name, but like I said to you, sometimes the words just don't come out. But he'd mentioned about discarding her in some way. And at that point, as I was showing this chap, he kind of said, "Oh, my goodness." And I'm like, what happened? You know, is something happening to him while he was talking to me? What had happened? He realized at that point that there was something drastically wrong in this interview, and he didn't want to deal with Madeleine again with us.
Wow.
I think he came to the realization that everything he thought was not so.
Wow.
I'm sorry, I can't remember the actual word. But it's a popular video, and actually it was from Channel 7 in Australia, and they took a copyright on me. They didn't like me posting that video.
Well, I'm about to show some Channel 7.
Well, I'm sure you'll
Right
be
now.
fine because they were aware of me. It's on many, many videos. It's just me. They had their lawyers contact me.
Okay.
So.
All right. Let me play this here.
Did you kill your daughter?
No, never. And, you know, there's nothing with any logic that could, you know, you would have to start with why, you know, how, when, who, and there's just simply, you know, the answer to any of these things is there's nothing to suggest anything. So, no.
It seems like a bizarre way to answer that question, right?
Absolutely. Too much information. I mean,
too much.
Just a simple no should have been what he said, but
And
disposed. That's, thank you, Palumbo. Disposed is what he said in that interview. And he didn't quite finish the word.
Sorry, Liz.
No, I was just saying disposed is the word that he said and then changed it to hid or something like that.
Yeah, I think
that was the moment that this expert suddenly said no, because I really thought something had happened to him personally because he went crazy. It was weird. And then he apologized and he said, Liz, I don't want to deal with Madeleine on your channel anymore. So that was it.
I think the part you're referencing is here somewhere. I think it's this part. Let me see if I can find it.
And we hid her body. Well, when did she have the accident and died? Because
standard practice in
this is the part of the interview on 7 News where Peter Hyatt, who's another analyst of statements,
yes, he was on my channel actually.
He was, yeah, I watched that.
Yeah.
And
okay, so
he says that this is an embedded confession, right?
Yeah.
And he has his reasons why he says that. But let me just play it here.
reasonably good class burglars to make an exit route for yourself, to open the back door as well. So if somebody comes in the front door, you can just simply run out.
The lead investigator, Detective Amaral, was convinced Madeleine's parents, Jerry and Kate, were involved.
Sim, esse é o ponto de vista que This was our point of view in 2007, that she was dead.
I mean, the ludicrous thing is that Madeleine died in the apartment by an accident and we hid her body. Well, when did she have the accident and died? Because the only time she was left unattended was when we were at dinner. So if she died then, how could we have disposed or hidden her body, you know, when there was an immediate search? It's just nonsense. So, and if she died when we were in the apartment or fell and did, why would we cover that up?
Detective Amaral brought in 2 sniffer dogs, Eddie and Keela, from the UK. He claimed the dogs found traces of Madeleine's DNA in a car hired by the MCCANNs weeks after she disappeared.
fluido humano que the fluid is a 90% match with the profile of Madeleine McCann.
He believed they'd hidden her body at the beach, then used a rental.
All right, let's get into, Liz, why you believe that whatever occurred prior to the 3rd of May. Because we can go through the timeline, the official timeline of the 3rd of May, and then you can point out why you think that whatever happened a few days prior, right?
Yes. The point is, as I explained, I've never looked to actually try and prove that point. what happened is, as initially when I started doing the looking at the case, I realized that there was so much information. So I opened, for myself, I opened a forum up to be able to put down the statements and the translations when we got them. And then I started to compare each statement. I put the morning of the 2nd or whatever, and what everybody said at one specific time. So at 11 o'clock in the morning, I'd have somebody, one of the friends saying this and one of the friends saying that. And I could see that there was some kind of discrepancy there. So all that kind of led me to believe that something was happening, something was wrong.
Right.
And initially, I think, like most people, we did question whether or not it was the 3rd. But very quickly, people started looking at Wednesday, the 2nd. So I believed at that point that it was Wednesday, the 2nd. And what I decided I'd do is take all the nanny's statements and any other statements that referred to somebody seeing her during the week, and was quite shocked to see that. I've just realized prior to that, I looked at the statements and the tennis coach had said that she'd seen her on, or we believed the tennis coach had said we've seen her on the Tuesday, because they had mini tennis. So at that point, I went back to Tuesday as being the last time she was seen. So when I started to scrutinize all the statements, because I was looking for proof that somebody had seen them. So I wasn't satisfied with, oh yeah, I saw her, because that wasn't proof to me. I needed some kind of proof. So when I studied the tennis coach, she had said she was one of a group, and she could very well have been reading from her booking sheet and didn't actually know whether Maddie was there or not. So that became the fact that I didn't have Tuesday as the last time she was seen. So after going through all the statements, which I do have on my channel and is actually something I'm sending to the PJ, the last time that I feel there was proof that Maddie was seen was Sunday lunchtime. There is no other statements that I have found that tell me and give me proof that Maddie was seen during that week.
So
Sunday
who seen her on Sunday?
Pardon?
Who was it that seen her on Sunday?
Well,
morning?
Fatima, the cleaner's daughter, gave a very specific thing about seeing her when they came out of the apartment and walked up to the 2nd floor.
Right.
Which they did at lunchtimes, initially anyway, because they used to meet in the Payne's apartment, which was on, I don't know whether you'd classify the 1st or 2nd floor, but the one up from the ground. And I checked Fatima's time of working. I think it was 1:15, and she stated that she was going to visit her mother, who was cleaning in the apartment next door to David Payne's. So that all absolutely fitted. And she described them carrying plates. She described their shoes having little lights on them. So that to me really was confirmation to me that she'd seen them. So that was the last time. I have the whole list of every statement made, and anybody can look at it and see that there was not one statement that showed that she was actually seen during the week. I'm not saying she wasn't seen. I'm saying I've got no proof that she was.
And to be clear, your theory kind of depends upon Katrina Baker making a a kind of assumption that Maddie was there on May the 3rd, right? Because she does state that Maddie was there, but you're kind of saying, well, she was used to there being X amount of kids, and she just wasn't familiar enough with the kids yet to be sure.
Yeah, but also something that most people don't realize, according to the files, when she was picked up on May the 3rd from her statement about May the 3rd, she doesn't actually say that Maddie was there. She says the twins were there. And
is that at 12:30 when they were collected, or
no, when they were picked up from that high tea area, which I showed you with the canopies, with all the other children. Right. Most people don't realize that she doesn't actually say that Maddie was there.
That's at 5 o'clock, right?
Yeah, 5:30. Yeah, and there's a lot of questions regarding her second statement, the rogatory, which was in the following April, because she had visited the McCanns in the November. They had a secret meeting, and we believe it's possible that they were kind of arranging something. And I don't believe in any way that Catriona was anything to do with it whatsoever. I really don't. Because I think some of the discrepancies in her statement that night when she was when they were picking her up, she was saying, well, Jerry was playing tennis and this and that, and Kate was in her jogging outfit. And I feel that it's very possible that when she was there and at this meeting, they could very well, I mean, this is really going deep into something which could have happened, to explain why she was saying that Kate was in her jogging outfit, is that they said to her, oh, do you remember, when you picked her up and Kate was doing this and that? She may have remembered it from that if they'd have put it into her mind. Because she doesn't actually say that Maddie was there that afternoon when she was picked up.
Okay, the only pushback I would have on that is, I find it hard to believe that a nanny would have 2 or 3 days with Maddie being there, right, to not know that she wasn't there on the 3rd or 4th day, because we're kind of so designed to never forget human faces. It's one of the kind of, it's almost biologically embedded within us, right, to never forget a face. Well,
not with me, but that's another story.
Yeah, and I know you've said, you've spoken to people that work in the field, and they say, yeah, I could never, I could forget a face within 2 or 3 days. But that's the only pushback I have on that. That's the only thing I kind of find hard to believe, that she would not notice that she wasn't there, right?
You know what? I really appreciate you questioning things. I have always loved when the pro-McCanns used to ask me questions to try and it makes me second guess myself. And that's one thing I've relied on, because if I can't, if I second guess myself and I can't explain it, then that question, I only want the truth. I don't need to be proven right.
I can tell. Yeah, I can tell that. That's why I so appreciate you talking to me, because it's so obvious that is all you're seeking, right? Is the actual truth.
Absolutely. But I can hopefully concisely, because I'm not very good at concise, but I can hopefully explain what your question may be explained by. Now, keeping in mind that there was nothing that I could see in any of the statements of the nannies, of Catriona, anybody that confirmed that Maddie was seen. If you take that into consideration, and just supposing something, the Monday was a time when the tapas didn't really give too much information out. It was a questionable day. The discrepancies that I discovered while I was researching started on the Tuesday morning. And because they started on the Tuesday morning, and there was a heck of a lot of, I'm not talking memory stuff. I mean, everybody forgets this and that and the other, but I'm talking actual discrepancies that started on Tuesday morning. And there were several that day and right through to the Thursday. So my mind tells me, okay, if this was just a holiday, why would there be so many discrepancies? So maybe because it started on the Tuesday, maybe something had happened to Maddie at that point, because there was really questionable stuff that was happening. So if that's the case and something happened to Maddie after the Sunday, but before the Tuesday morning, then had she gone to the creche, she would have only been there a day or two at the very beginning. And something which I put together with the fact that the Russell O'Brien and Jane Tanner's daughter was very similar in age. There was only 3 months between them. And I don't know if you can see that photo that I sent you comparing the two. It doesn't matter. We can look at that later. But they were very similar hair color. And what I believe may have happened, and I firmly believe it, but, you know, it's up to everybody else to decide, is that at the point that maybe something happened to Maddie, let's say on the Monday or Tuesday or whatever, I won't say she died that day. I don't know the day. There is nothing that tells me from the files any specific time that she died. So it could have been any time. But if she was fatally ill or something like that is what I'm talking about. If she had only visited the creche one day, 2 days, you don't often remember children or people after, when you've looked after them all week. But if the Jane Tanner's daughter had been there, and what I believe happened, and this is something that only came to me a few years ago, is I always thought if I believe something happened to her earlier, it's my responsibility to figure out how the creche, how they managed to fake Maddie being at the creche. And then when I did a creche graphic, which I keep saying every time I do it, I remember it took me 2 days to do. And I looked at it and I thought, oh my golly, why did I waste my time doing that? But when I was going through it on Jill Haven's forum, I was doing a post on Complete Mystery of Madeleine McCann, which is a great forum. So I recommend anybody who wants to know all the details, go to that forum. I was doing it and I suddenly realized that what was happening when I put all the creche records into this graphic, that whenever Jerry or Kate dropped off Madeleine or picked her up, Russell O'Brien seemed to always be there. And I thought, hang on, but on the actual records, only one of the children were signed in and one of the children was signed out. The other two were blank. And way back in 2008, I remember this one child in and one child out, and I couldn't explain it back in 2008. But then it suddenly came to me that what if Jerry and Russell both went at the same time? Russell's daughter went in and Jerry went in with her. And so they knew that the nannies would think that Jerry was the father of this girl that went in. And so when they came to do their witness statement, yeah, we saw Jerry with his daughter. And that's how they managed it. And I did actually kind of confirm that in a sense, because on the Wednesday there was no tennis. They had tennis every morning. There was no tennis. So they dropped the twins off first thing in the morning, and it only takes 10 minutes to go to Madeleine's crash. But they took about 20 minutes before they arrived. But in the meantime, Diane Webster had said she'd seen them at the Millennium on the Wednesday morning, but they didn't have breakfast. So
they were at the Millennium on the
Wednesday morning, Diane Webster.
Oh, okay.
And this is what clicked, because I'd remembered she'd said that. And I thought, okay, if they dropped the twins off first, and why did it take 20 minutes or so to get to Maddie's crash? But what I suddenly realized, if they dropped the twins off, then went to the Millennium, and by coincidence, after they'd been to the Millennium, Russell O'Brien was with them. It's almost like they went to pick up Russell and walk back to Maddie's kids club. It fitted. It fitted. It's probably too confusing for everybody to understand that, but for me, that was a moment when I thought, yeah, this looks like it could be the reason. And it's one of the videos that I've got that explains that, and I'm sending to the PJ. And the reason I'm sending it to the PJ, along with my video about nobody saw Maddie during the week, is because in Gonzalo Amoral's book, which he brought out last fall, he mentions that it is possible that something happened to Maddie earlier in the week, which for me was like, wow, that was a moment, because this kind of helps confirm what I believe. And
yeah, let's talk about that. They brought the dogs in. There was a cadaver dog and there was a blood dog, and the cadaver dog hit behind the sofa, and in the master bedroom, in the wardrobe, and like there was a kind of shelves inside the wardrobe, and I think the bloodhound as well hit right behind the sofa. Is that right?
Yeah. They used two dogs because the Eddie, the cadaver dog, picks up blood as well as cadaver. So they bring in the two dogs. So if Eddie alerts, they bring in Keela. They brought in Keela, the blood dog. So if she alerted, then it was blood as well as cadaver. In the wardrobe, Keela didn't alert, so it was just cadaver odor. But keep in mind, it doesn't mean she was in the wardrobe. It collects in one area, and when the dogs alert, it's just when the cadaver dog alerts, it's just in that area. It doesn't mean it was in a specific spot.
Yeah. And I think the cadaver dog also alerted outside the back patio and the flower bed.
Yeah, something not a lot of people realize is the dogs were brought back, I think on the 4th of August, a few days after they actually did the first. And after the tiles had been picked up. And by the way, while we're talking about the tiles behind the sofa, I think something is very important to make a point of, because there's people that say that Maddie's blood was found under the tiles. That is not the case. The blood under the tiles was actually from the officer that lifted the tiles.
Cutting his fingers,
yeah, but also the reason that Maddie's components were found in the blood around the sofa, but you see, that doesn't mean any, that's not something they can use, because she was in the apartment and Jerry suggested it was a nosebleed. So, but they can't use that to confirm something happened to Maddie. They can only use what was in the trunk of the car. And because there was, I believe, 37 alleles in the forensics, 15 of Maddie's 19 were in it, but it was with the other people. It was mixed, and that's why it can't be 1,000,000 to 1, like some people claim. Because
And this is, I think this is a good time to reference the podcast by Mark Saunakanuko.
Oh, yes.
Who's done a really good podcast on Madeleine McCann. And I think he got in touch with a DNA expert over in America, and he was willing to do an actual proper investigation into the DNA, and Scotland Yard would not allow it.
Yeah, it was offered to them. I'd always believed in Scotland Yard because I was in contact with them initially. There was one of the detectives there that was really good. He used to, I spoke to him several times. I believed at that time that they really were taking it seriously and looking at the parents. But later on, I think we all have questions as to the validity of what they were doing. And I think maybe the higher echelons kind of changed the thing. But initially, they took everything. He even asked me for some of my videos. So I know that they had an interest in what I had to say.
They seem to have had an obvious inclination to only follow the theory of an abduction and not look into the parents, right?
Yeah, and Colin Sutton video shows that, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. I should have filled in there, shouldn't I?
Yeah, I mean, God, it's such a. I mean, just to think, Madeleine would have just turned 19 a month ago.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy to think?
It is, and it's, I mean, it's as you and I think everybody knows, it's really important to me. Overall, at the end of the day, I don't give two hoots about the parents. I'm not looking for anything to happen to them. I think they've probably gone through hell this past 15 years. My point is that I hope that one day, in whatever circumstance it is, that Maddie will be found. She can be buried with dignity, and the family, the rest of the family, can grieve, and so can the world grieve. That's really what drives me. And the reason I've done whatever I've done is to get the information out to the UK public, because they really have only mostly heard about the media, what the media claim. And that has been distorted like crazy.
Here's the thing, Liz. There's a kind of scale in terms of what people surmise about this case. I mean, it goes all the way from, being on one side where, yeah, it was an accident and the parents just had to cover it up because they didn't want to lose their twins, to all the way over on the other side where it gets really dark and there's certain accusations that I don't know if we want to get into, but I'm sure you're aware that there's certain darker insinuations when it comes to, David Payne.
Oh, yeah.
And what
David
may
Payne and
possibly
the
have been
Gasper
going on.
statements, yeah.
The Gasper statements, yeah. And it goes to a certain extreme where, the government essentially were wanting to cover this up because they were somehow implicated in this. Like,
there is definitely something, whether you call it a cover-up or whether it's because of a there I go, I've forgotten another word, where Carrie will get it. Diane Webster, in her statement, I managed to pick out one little moment where she referred to the fact that they couldn't talk about anything because of the I wish I could remember the word. I do this all the time. I warned you I would. But it's something in Britain where you cannot talk about a case. In fact, you cannot even refer to the case not being able to talk, spoken about. And this is something that Diane Webster had mentioned. So if that is the case, and it's under this Carter Ruck, the lawyers have often super injunction. Thank you, Happy Thoughts. Appreciate that, and Cheryl. Yeah, it's a super injunction. And if you look it up, there was also a something where Carter Ruck, their lawyers, actually with Trafigura, had a super injunction, which was exposed ultimately on Twitter. But if there is a super injunction, then nobody can talk about it. So is it a cover-up, or is it the fact that there's a super injunction and nobody can discuss about the reality of what it's all about? So it's hard to say. And it's in Diane Webster's statement that the detective that was talking to her said, you're not able to discuss. And they started off with, according to this super with capital S, and then ineligible, can't say what the rest is. So that seemed to me that that's very likely. And that might be the reason that nobody really knows the truth, because nobody can speak out. I've seen quotes where the Tapa 7 lawyers have quoted that their each of the Tapa 7, their individual clients cannot discuss the case, even though they want to. So,
yeah, I've heard Jane Turner say that she would be willing to speak more about it, but she can't.
Yeah, and as I say, I've got the quotes now. I try to stay with the facts of the files, but I do accept interviews or quotes from papers because I believe a quote should be for real. And these lawyers have, there's several of the lawyers that have claimed that the Tapa 7 cannot talk about it.
What do you, Liz, what do you make of the Smith sighting? And the reason that it seems to kind of strike a certain tone is the fact that he witnessed Jerry coming off the plane, like this picture I'm showing, and the way he was carrying his kid really struck a nerve with him. And that's when he got in contact with the, I think the Leicester law enforcement, right? To say, that's the guy I saw walking down. And I think it was at like 10 o'clock that he seen.
Yeah, something like that. I want to say something. it's kind of controversial to what many people believe. And I'll get this out of the way. I absolutely believe the Smiths saw what they saw. I don't question them. But what I do question is Jerry McCann carrying his dead daughter through the streets without a blanket. That just does not fit with me. And I've never from the start. Now, what was really weird is that there was one person in one of the forums that was all for the Smith sighting, and they were discussing it. And I discovered that this person suddenly disappeared. I think it was at the time that Kate wrote the book. And I just questioned that, you know, I really did.
The thing is, though, Liz, if it wasn't an abduction, he has to have got rid of Madeleine really quickly.
Well, this is what I'm saying. Everything that I have researched, I've never come across one thing to negate anything that I found out. But it does explain a lot. It explains why a lot of the things during the week, like if there's some things which actually do show that something was happening during the week. And that is that Jerry was pulled up for the text messages. Now they started coming Tuesday. The prosecutor went to Supreme Court just before the files were released. They went to Supreme Court to try and get these text messages. Now that was on the Wednesday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning. If they didn't believe that something was happening at that point, then, you know, makes you think, why would they, if it was just a regular holiday? But as far as the Smith sighting goes, if you look at the possible fact, let me correct myself, that if something happened to her earlier in the week, now, is it possible that Jerry used that same child, that Russell O'Brien's child, to walk through the streets to kind of create this scenario? Because if Madeleine wasn't there and they used this child possibly during the crash, not to specifically say this is Maddie, but I mean, there was about 14 children in the crash. And I mean, you have to question whether or not they really knew who each child was. And is it possible that he specifically did that? So that's why I believe the Smiths. I believe they saw something, and it could very well have been Jerry. But I don't believe it was Maddie. I believe that if that was the case, and he was taking the child to find a place to hide her, that he would have had her in a blanket if she was passed away. I don't believe he'd carry her just regularly if that was for real. I've never believed that.
And what do you make of
oh, please,
this guy? It seems like an obvious Scotland Yard scapegoat to try and close the case, right? There's zero evidence of this guy being involved, other than he was in Praia de Luz.
Well, he lived there, but nothing of what the German police prosecutor have said. Mark Sonakodoko actually did a podcast, it's called Madeleine's Taken. And he spoke to the prosecutor, who knew nothing. He didn't even realize. He said, well, the phone pings, excuse me using that scenario, was at the Ocean Club. No, it wasn't. There was only one tower around, and it could have been anywhere. It wasn't at the Ocean Club. There is not one not one piece of evidence whatsoever that Christian Bruckner was anything to do with it. And from other information that I've received, no, he wasn't.
And let's look at the apparent sighting from Jane Tanner. This is the drawing that can't remember the guy's name. Jeremy Wilkins.
Yeah.
I think he was a TV producer.
Yes, he was.
And he met Jerry as he was coming back from the apartment, and he indicates here where they were talking. And Jane says that she was walking up here. If you can see my cursor.
Yes.
Up to there, and she's seen someone carrying a child across there, which would just be near to Madeleine's window. But from what I gather, they've found the guy that was carrying the child, so they know that he was obviously not
Julian,
involved,
I think
right?
it was Julian, somebody, yeah.
But what it does do is it proves that Jane was telling the truth, right? And it kind of gives Jerry an alibi, right? Because her statement here is obviously true. Because they know.
Yeah, and it's interesting you've got the X where it is, because there is something not a lot of people know. As I say, I go by the files, I go by interviews, I go by quotes, but I also go by the comments made by Gonzalo Amaral. And in one of the videos that he did, along with, what's his name? Terrible. Along with one of the other people that he knows, he quotes, I think the actual video is called Return to Praia de Luz. And he quotes that nobody actually went to the front. They all went through the patio doors. And this is where it led me to believe also that the patio doors, you cannot open if they're locked. They have to be either left open, which I don't believe they were, or somebody was inside. And I absolutely believe that somebody was inside. And he says that Jane Tanner didn't go to the front. She went in through the patio doors.
Yeah.
So if Gonzalo Amaral says that, I absolutely believe that he knows what happened there. And the fact that the X is at the point around where she would have gone to the, up to towards the patio doors, that tells me that that's probably where she went. Meaning that somebody was in the apartment. And in one of the pictures, photos, graphics that I've pointed out to you, there is one where it says that once Gonzalo Amaral was removed, the Paulo Rebello actually claimed there were 7 children in one apartment. But what he didn't say was where the 8th was.
Like, it's inconceivable to me, right, that Jerry can make a mistake in terms of coming in through the front door rather than the back patio. It just makes no sense whatsoever.
He actually claimed he came in through the front door and used his
in his
key.
first statement, right?
Yeah, and then he claimed it was the patio. I've also got a little a short clip on that, which I don't think I sent you, because back in 2011, when I was doing the videos, I used a lot of music. which at that time they let me get away with, but I don't think they would now, and I wouldn't want your live to be copyrighted because of what because of one of my videos. So any videos I've sent you don't have copyright stuff on it.
That's all good.
So he actually lied outright that he came in through the front door using his key and then changed it. And that I believe
the biggest, like, out of the whole case, that is the biggest red flag, is the fact that he changed the statement from the front door to the back patio.
They changed quite a few statements on the 10th as opposed to the 4th. I've got on that clip, you can see him with Matthew Oldfield claiming they came in through the back because they didn't want to wake Maddie. So another one, which I've also sent a graphic of, is where on the 4th, they claim that Maddie came to them and said that the twins were crying. And on the 10th, they changed it to the Madeleine. Madeleine was crying. Why was that? But also, sorry, if I go back to the fact of why he claimed the difference as coming in the front as opposed to the back, is because initially they claimed that the shutters had been jemmied. Now, if they'd have been jemmied, and they were proven not to have been jemmied, so he had to explain how an abductor came in, and that's probably the biggest part of this. And it's one thing which really, really gets to me, is that everybody presumes that they neglected the children. I don't believe they neglected the children, partly because on the Thursday, Maddie wasn't there anyway. And what happens is that is one mantra that they allow the media to use, that they left the children alone in the apartment. The point is that if they were going to claim it was an abduction, they had to say that they left her alone, because otherwise, if the children were looked after, as I believe they were, they couldn't say there was an abduction because somebody would have been there. And that's the only negative mantra that they've allowed everybody to use and see and believe. And so many people, when they say, well, they neglected their children, well, if they hadn't neglected their children, then there couldn't have been an abduction. And that was beneficial for them to say they neglected them. Yeah, that was early on in Scotland Yard, in Operation Grange, that he said there's always the potential that she didn't leave the apartment alive. It's like at that point they were still kind of looking at different possibilities, and you know what, they may still be, because I know the detective told me, and this was at the time when there were first the Operation Grange statements. He told me, he said, listen, he said, what you see, we keep under the radar with anything that we are investigating. He said, you won't hear anything of the investigation. He said, so when you see a spokesman say anything, or his boss, when you hear him saying anything, read between the lines. And that was very important and you see where he says there is always the potential that she didn't leave the apartment alive. He's not saying we think the parents might be involved, but read between the lines, and it means, yeah, they may be.
What do you think? What do you think they did with Madeleine? Do you go along with Pat Brown that they took her down to the beach and then moved her later on?
Oh, you know, Pat and I, we laugh. We both disagree on things, but we both absolutely respect each other. And as I said at the beginning, I totally respect Pat's opinion. She's a criminal profiler. She does profiling, and I absolutely respect her what she makes of it, as she does me, with my differences. Now, the thing is, Pat has taken the information and put it this way. I have looked into a lot of the information that she's not aware of, so I've taken it a different way. And as far as what happened to Maddie, the cadaver odor was found behind the sofa. It was found in the bedroom. It was found outside the bedroom on the balcony, which, as I started to say before, was something that a lot of people don't realize. There was cadaver odor and there was hairs on the balcony outside of the bedroom, which were all sent to Portugal. They weren't sent to FSS in Birmingham. They were sent to Portugal. And this is where there is a possibility that they do have the hairs that can now be determined whether or not they came from a person that was alive or dead. Gonzalo has mentioned that also. So then from the balcony, the cadaver odor was found in the garden. And because I believe something happened earlier, nobody was looking. Nobody was aware of anything at that point. So they could very easily have moved her body at that point. And there is a thought about an apartment that was close by. Gonzalo Amaral mentions this apartment that they were seen going into. And he mentioned also that the freezer is no longer accessible, because he does believe that she was placed in a freezer. And the reason that is because once going further down into July, a couple of months later, whatever happened to her in between time, when they moved her body, there was fluid that was found over the wheel onto the curb, and it was the kind of fluid that would come from a body that had been frozen. And there was a lot hidden by the Birmingham forensics.
And there was also someone that lived nearby that witnessed the trunk being open.
Yes.
Like day after day, right?
Yes, and Cameron, Jerry's brother-in-law, claimed that they'd bought meat, and so they left the trunk open for, I think, a week. Every night for a week, the neighbor saw that the trunk was left open, and yeah, so it looks very likely that that's what happened, that when they moved her body. None of us know where to. There's several thoughts about it, but this is the point of where one day I hope we can find out, just to have closure. Yeah. That's I did not give it much importance and assumed it was likely due to the leakage from the rubbish bags or from the blood which had escaped from the shopping bags. And yeah, but Gonzalo doesn't believe that, and neither do I. Yeah, that's the open trunk.
A neighbour saw the trunk open night and day, but this was not known after Gonzalo Amaral had left the investigation.
How did the family know about the witness and try to reply to the observed facts. See, this is the thing, is he was removed not because he was doing a bad job. It was, I believe it was something to do with the fact that he had claimed something that he knew about the British police, and they just removed him because of that. After the fact, there's from the official Portuguese files. That's what shows that the minor Madeleine McCann died in the apartment 5A on the night of the 3rd of May. A simulation of an abduction took place, and they said about the checking, and the situation may raise questions concerning the circumstances in which the death of the child took place. Nobody has ever claimed that they killed her. That's important to remember. I think most of us believe that it was an accident of some kind. But
yeah, I believe it was just a horrible accident, and they are having to present this case, you know, which is essentially a lie, and they can't get out of it.
yeah, and also keep in mind something which is important to keep in mind. This was back in 2007. This was before a lot of, we didn't start the Facebook groups until about 2012. They were the first kind of Maddie Facebook groups around, maybe just before. So when this happened, if you think about it, there was really only media around and some forums. So they would have no knowledge that this would have turned out with such publicity that it did. And if you consider that maybe one night this happened, I don't believe it happened on the 3rd, because when you think about it, if you think logically, if something did happen on the 3rd, why would you rush within an hour to hide it? But if it had happened on the Tuesday or whenever, that would give you the opportunity to think, what are you going to do to get rid of, to find a place to hide her body, to do everything and to set up. And as I say, the Gonzalo believes that something could have happened earlier. And the only reason they haven't really pushed on that is because they cannot explain the crash deceit. But that is something which I'm sending to the which I have explained how it could have happened.
See, like, to me, the only time that they came across as utterly genuine was in the very first, I guess you could call that a press conference, when they were outside their own apartment. And that felt real to me. But I think that's because they were digesting the fact that Madeleine was gone. She was dead, right?
Yeah. And that's what I pointed out to your perception earlier, is that of course they're going to be upset.
Yeah.
You know, if she died, of course they are. It doesn't mean they're upset. I mean, everything they showed shortly after that was just really didn't go along with it. They started to put everything into place where they were trying to justify everything. Excuse me. But yeah, there were so many discrepancies.
Let's watch the first interview that they did, which was a month after this.
Yeah, where she claims about them searching. Is that the one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
Let me find it. And I think this is why they had such a hard time, you know, in the kind of public reaction, is that they seem to kind process everything a little too quickly, and to
Yeah,
move
and they
on
didn't
a little too
search.
quickly.
They didn't search. I was going to send to you the video that I have, but I didn't. It's where even one of the tapas staff claimed that her boyfriend was out. He even had his feet were hurt from searching. And the thing was, he was upset because the parents didn't search.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. I heard as well, one of the bartenders that was working in the tapas bar apparently said that he didn't see people getting up and leaving as much as what they're claiming.
Now, do you mean during the time that they were
On May the 3rd, on the last night?
On the last night.
Yeah.
I can't recall that specifically, but I do recall that Diane Webster stayed at the table, apparently, and the others went back. But I do know that they did claim that they got up from the table at different times, but that wasn't necessarily because they were going to visit the children. Because I absolutely believe, and I think Paulo Rebello, the coordinator after Gonzalo Moral, I do believe that he did. Although it was a news report, there does seem to be something to it, that he said there were questions as to whether or not the 7 children were in one apartment, but he didn't mention about the 8th. And that is very telling. So Madeleine would have been the 8th.
Do you kill your daughter?
No, never. And, there's nothing with any logic that could, you would have to start with why, how, when, who, and there's just simply, the answer to any of these things is there's nothing to suggest anything. So, no, that's an emphatic no.
On the first night of the trip, the couples discovered the resort's main restaurant, the Millennium, was too far a walk for 8 small children. So the McCanns and their friends made a block booking for the next 6 nights at the tapas restaurant across the pool from their apartments. From the restaurant, they had line of sight to the block of villas where their children were sleeping. You explained that it wasn't like you were taking a risk by leaving the kids there. It never for 1 second occurred to you that anything would take place.
That's right. I mean, we always talk about the decision we made, but that almost implies that you talked about, do you think that'll be okay or not? I mean, that never came into it. It was a case of, we can eat here. That'll be ideal. The kids' evening won't be disruptive. We'll get them sorted and then we can all eat. I mean, it was simply like that. If there'd been any risk at all that had occurred to us, then it just wouldn't have happened.
Thursday, May 3rd was meant to be the second last night of their vacation. Kate told me about that afternoon and that evening. Madeleine said she'd had a great day.
Yeah, no, she'd had a really full day, actually. They'd been to the beach and had I think they called it mini sail. So she'd been on a little boat or a dinghy or something. But my memory of that evening is really vivid. I mean, she was really tired, but she was just cuddled up on my knee, and we read a story, which, as Jerry said, is one of her favourites. And she often liked to put on my engagement ring. So she was sitting there with my, ring on, and we read the story. And we also had some treats. We had some crisps and biscuits. And then after they'd done the usual kind of toilet teeth, we went through to the bedroom and read another story, If You're Happy and You Know It. Yeah.
The children were in bed by 7 o'clock. Their parents left for dinner at 8:30. The tapas bar was across the pool from their apartments. The McCann's apartment was on the end, the most accessible from the street. The front door was locked, but the sliding patio doors at the back were left unlocked to allow easy access to check on their children. Madeleine was asleep in a single bed in the front room where her parents kept the window closed and locked. The twins, Sean and Amelie, were in travel cots by her side. At 9:05, Jerry went back to check on the children.
I saw her and I had one of those parental moments where I thought, God, we're so lucky. Look at her, 3 children, having a lovely holiday. Kids were really enjoying it, and I just lingered for a few seconds and thought how beautiful she was.
And
that's the last time I saw her.
Last time you saw her.
Mm.
You thought how lucky you were.
Exactly. Your world shattered within an hour.
It was 10 p.m. Kate's turn to check on the children. She estimates it took between 30 and 45 seconds to walk from the tapas restaurant on the other side of the pool to their apartment, number 5A.
She walked into the kids' bedroom and felt a gust of wind.
The curtains, which had been closed, just swung open into the room and revealed that the shutter was all the way up and the window being pushed right across. And then I just knew she'd been taken. I ran to the window. I've no idea what I expected to find or see. You know, you just hope you're going to see your child every second. Whizzed around the apartment in about 10 seconds. Again, I don't quite know because, you know, I knew in my head that someone had taken her. I don't know if I kind of hoped that maybe she was hiding in a cupboard or something. And then I just legged it out the back of the apartment. And then as soon as I saw Jerry and our friends at the table, I mean, I was just screaming, you know, Madeleine's gone, someone's taken it.
Yeah, I mean, Kate was clearly distraught and I jumped up, but it was kind of disbelief. She can't be gone. She can't possibly. How could she be gone? It's the furthest thing from your mind. And I was saying that to Kate as we were both running.
Did you think that there must be some confusion? She must be there somewhere.
Yeah, I just thought she can't have been taken. That doesn't happen. You just think it doesn't happen. And but Kate was saying she's gone, someone's taken her.
The McCann's friends began a frantic search. The Ocean Club's manager initiated an emergency warning system, mobilising 60 staff searching the club, the beach and surrounds. Police joined the search 2 hours later.
They were looking for a child that had wandered away. That's what everybody thought must have happened. She'd wandered away. And that was the focus, really, of what they were looking for, a child that had wandered away.
Paul Luckman is the editor of the Portugal News. He was one of the first journalists on the scene.
When did you first see the McCanns?
I saw Kate McCann with one of the friends, with his arm around her, comforting her. I got a photograph of it.
And Kate looked out of her mind.
She was very distressed and being comforted, and it was running around Treely. Look, what mum wouldn't be pretty much out of their mind at the thought you lost a child?
What was Kate doing? Was she inside or outside the apartment?
She was outside the apartment.
Was she interacting with police?
Yes, interacting to some degree. I think the police were trying to take it very gently. The whole focus was on a little girl that had got lost, wandered away and got lost in a strange place.
So it was not at the beginning considered a crime?
No.
Or a crime scene?
No, it really wasn't. And we all know that, and including the Portuguese police, will freely admit in those first few days, yes, they did trample all over because they're looking for the little girl. Nobody even considered this could be something else.
It wasn't until 4:30 the next morning that roadblocks were put in place, 6.5 hours after Madeleine disappeared.
One policeman said to me, look, if the child was abducted, 1 hour later she's in Spain. long before we've any time to close off the roads, start. We're still looking for a little girl lost in the field next door. They'd be halfway across Spain, or going down towards Algeciras into North Africa. Probably would have been most of the way there. We have motorways all the way.
Please continue to pray for Madeleine. She's lovely.
Clarence Mitchell has represented the family for nearly a decade. He says the tide of public opinion turned very quickly on the McCanns.
Once it was reported that they weren't with the children, then the judgment squad kicked in and they were guilty of neglect at the very least.
The couple's stoicism in front of the cameras didn't help.
The British police said to them, before they did any television interviews, a perpetrator of a kidnap will...
Do you kill your daughter? No, never. And, there's nothing with any logic that could, you would have to start with why, how, when, who, and there's just simply, the answer to any of these things is there's nothing to suggest anything. So, no, that's an emphatic no.
It's not running.
Trip, the couples discovered the resort's main restaurant, the Millennium, was too far a walk for 8 small children. So the McCanns and their friends made a block booking for the next 6 nights at the tapas restaurant across the pool from their apartments.
It's been taken down. It says the stream's not running for policy violations.
Yeah, that's. I think that was the second one that they did, but certainly the initial one. I had a copyright, and it came from the lawyers, not just YouTube. So it's very likely that they have taken that down.
Yeah, no, this live right now it's saying stream unavailable. People are still in the chat, but this is not live. It's not showing.
Oh, I see. From this actual.
Yeah, they've taken it. It's been pulled.
Yeah,
So,
they have bots that can sort of. As I say, they took my video down, so I never use those clips anymore.
there are still 36 people in the chat. I don't know if you want to restart one.
Are you talking to Rabid there? Or?
Either of you, yeah.
Well, I can't do anything as a guest. I can fill in.
Rabid. Don't know why.
Has he disappeared?
He seems to have.
Okay. I just want to say something.
Go on.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to start another one. There's still 37 odd people in chat. I'm
gonna start up a new one. That's so fucked up. I mean, I'm showing footage from a channel.
Oh, we're back. It's saying that it's back. Oh yeah, we're back. How weird.
Really? Okay. You sure?
I can't say. I don't know. The
Someone's
chat's saying
it's
that
back.
it's back.
Okay. All right. Give me a sec.
I'm totally lost. As a guest, I can't see all the workings of what's happening. Yes, apparently we're live. And while you're doing that,
good, Liz.
I just want to clarify something while you're fixing it. I do apologize to anybody that I get carried away, and I sometimes go above what a new person that's learning about the case can understand. So I do apologize if I've done that.
No, you don't. I mean, I think you make it pretty clear, right, that you obviously know the case inside out.
Well, yes, and that means I sometimes forget that a lot of people don't. And I may travel into an area that gets confusing for anybody who doesn't know the case. But yeah, and somebody had mentioned earlier that they asked me whether or not I believed the abduction or whether Madeleine had died. I absolutely believe the files, the Portuguese police files, the official Portuguese police files, and the Portuguese police are still it's still an open case. They're still investigating. They may, for whatever reason, use Christian Bruckner as a suspect, but as far as they're concerned, we can be pretty sure that they know he's not. But the Portuguese police files tell us that Maddie died in the apartment. Her parents hid the body and they simulated an abduction. They were actually made arguidos back in 2007. And then when the case, 14 months after the first arguido was claimed, they were forced to either charge somebody or shelve the case. Now, they shelved the case. At that point, the MCCANNs were still arguidos, meaning suspects. But once it was shelved, they were released from that, from being suspects. Once it was reopened, there has never been any claim that the MCCANNs are innocent or that they were not guilty. Nothing has ever happened to say that they were not involved. So when you hear people say they were declared innocent, no, they weren't. They just were never confirmed as suspects. Are you still there?
I am. I'm still here. I'm going to put a link in to the private chat. And if you click this, it should bring you back to I'm trying to go live again. Okay, so there's a link in the chat.
So we're not live right now.
We're not now.
Oh, okay.
We're not now.
See, I can't tell. I can't tell.
I've started up a new live and I've linked you into it there.
Okay.
You are live. You are live now.
Are we?
Yes.
Okay.
You're live now.
Okay. Cool.
Okay.
So where should I go?
Did you click the link, Liz?
Yes, I did click the link. So do I go into that one and close this one?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I will
Hello.
Hi there.
You hear me? So I think my stream got taken down because I was streaming the 7 News footage.
Yeah, they
Unfortunately.
got their lawyers on me for doing that, as I told you.
Yeah. Oh well.
But never mind. Are we live again?
We are.
Oh, well. Is there anybody coming over, do you think? Is there any?
Yeah, I think this would be a good
The
time.
other live is still streaming.
If we can.
The other live is still streaming, so they're
Oh,
probably
is it?
still over there. Yeah.
I thought I got it taken down. Okay. I think what could be cool is if we could have some questions, and then we can do our best to.
Okay, you're streaming this live to your old live. So hi, everyone.
Hello, Helen.
You're in the original live. It just stopped while that video was playing and then it came back on. So you're still in the original live, but now you can't see Lizzie, although you can hear her. You're still in the original one.
I'm confused.
Right.
I don't get it.
So the live that you were in, the original live, it's still live. It just took the stream down for the period of time that video would have been playing, and then you came back on. So when I was up there, you came back on, but then I couldn't hear you for whatever reason, so I jumped back down. But like there's 33 people still in live. You're still in there. We
Right.
can hear Lizzie, but Lizzie's
Helen, I think. Can you and Cheryl just get up on a panel?
Yeah. Okay.
That'd be awesome.
Okay. 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 Right. I'll see you in a minute.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Bye.
Did you hear that, Liz?
I heard it, but I'm watching the new one. Should I go back to the old one?
I have no idea which live I'm on right now. I think I might be live right now. I have no idea.
Yeah, you have, according to Carrie, you have 2 lives running, and I guess you're streaming one into the other, maybe?
I'm so confused.
Yeah, me too. But I'm not going to start singing. You'll be lucky to hear that.
Oh, damn Australia.
Yeah, that's what I said to them when I got a copyright. But I do love Channel 9 with Mark Selnokonoko. That's my favorite Australian channel.
Oh, that was such a good podcast.
Oh, absolutely.
He
And
covered
he is
everything, didn't he?
Yes, and we worked with him for 2 years. Carrie, Helen, Cherry, myself, and we helped him over the course of 2 years, and he gave us credit at the end, which was great. And also Ben Salmon, who used to do the telephone information. He used a lot of his work and gave him credit. Rest in peace, Ben. I think everybody misses Ben. He was great. Yeah, it turned out an absolute great podcast with, I think it was 10 episodes. But he actually achieved getting to speak with Gonzalo Amaral in I think it was the last one, and that was amazing because Gonzalo doesn't do interviews easily. But he
You
did
have
pass
a
on.
you have a good connection to Gonzalo as well, don't you?
I don't have a direct connection, but I do have an indirect connection.
Right. Okay.
So, well, actually, 2 indirect connections.
Do you ever have any doubt about this, that they're maybe just, it was just a freak situation and they're actually innocent?
No, I have to say, I stand behind everything I say. I can give you the links to it. I might come to conclusions from what I see, as with the conclusion that if I haven't seen anybody say that they've seen Maddie during the week, I'm not saying that something happened to her on Sunday, but it certainly answers a lot as to how everything else worked. It's all in conjunction, and that's why it's so hard for me to come on a channel where there are people that don't understand or don't know the basics. I tend to go off on these tangents explaining a lot of the research I've done and forgetting that some people don't even really understand the basics. And the fact is that there is, and it is a fact, there is not one thing that proves or shows that it was an abduction.
That's the thing, yeah. I mean, there literally is zero evidence of an abduction.
Yes,
Zero.
absolutely.
And
Zero, yeah.
And if you apply Occam's razor, like I was talking about before,
yes, which I agreed with.
Yeah, it's plain as day. They're either the most unlucky people in the world, or they simulated an abduction, and it was some horrible accident that went wrong, and they tried to cover it up.
Yeah, and I absolutely believe that, because as I say, at that time, with not a lot of social media happening around 2007, they didn't realize the implications of what they did. And I mean, if something happened to Maddie, now I make a point of saying I don't know whether it was Jerry and Kate that were there at the point of the accident. Who knows? It could have been one of the others that were looking after her and something happened. So I don't hold them responsible for that. But certainly the police, and they did an amazing job. And anybody who claims that the Portuguese police didn't do an amazing job has not looked into the files. They had so many. I did a list of all the police that were actually named that were there at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and they stayed up. They were pulled from their beds. If they were asleep, a lot of them were pulled from their beds to come and join in the search for Maddie. It was an amazing investigation. But you see, the point is that Jerry and Kate claimed that they did nothing. But the reason they did nothing was to put that into everybody's head, so that anything that the police said, which was true, after that, people wouldn't believe them, because Jerry and Kate had said, well, they did nothing. And that's where it all started. Hi, Cheryl. Hi,
Hello
Happy Thought.
to Cheryl and Helen.
Hi.
Hey. So you're kind of a magician. I mean, I'm sure it's possible, but I don't know how you did it. So that live that you were on that you thought got taken down, it came back. So you started a new live. So
Oh,
now
did it?
this is, yes. So
Yeah.
now this is your new live. Your new live is actually streaming on your old live over there. So
weird.
Yeah. So some people are over there. Some people are over here.
Well, hi to everybody over there.
Yeah. Yeah. So now that, how you got them connected, I'm not really sure. So, I mean, originally I was thinking just shut this live down, go back to your old one because it's still up and going. If somebody were to come to your channel, they would see you had 2 lives going at the same time. But I don't really know how you got them connected. So I don't know what would happen if you actually canceled this one.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know how to go back to the other one. I can't. I've no idea how I could do that.
Well, I guess if it's done through StreamYard, it's StreamYard that has allowed you to have 2 open lives.
Well, you and I hate saying this, but you know, that one fake detective, he did that a few times. He would do one on the blue channel and stream it to the red channel or the green channel or whatever. So he would have them going at the same time. So I know it's possible. I just don't know how to do it. And apparently Rabid doesn't know how either.
I sure don't.
Well, I was actually going to suggest that maybe I could stream it from the HiDeHo channel, but I don't have the laptops to be able to do that. So,
well, yeah. So you're streaming. So that whole time you guys thought you weren't live, and you're talking about, oh my gosh, you know, let's get a new one started. All that, you were live the whole time. So it's a good thing you were talking crap about people. So, just saying. So you've got.
It went off. It went off for about 3 minutes. Something like that. It wasn't long.
Yeah.
So it's 7 News,
12?
right? It's the Australian channel. I played too much of that.
Yeah. The bot got you. Unless somebody reported you, of course.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know. So you've got 28 people over in the old live watching the new live, which you've got 13 people in. So, I mean, it's working. They're hearing you. It's just in the old live up on the screen, you can't see Lizzie because she's not in the old live. She's in this live.
Okay. All right. Okay. So let's just let's just rock with this one, right?
Yeah, everyone can hear you whether they're in the other one or this one. So it's
good.
fine.
Okay. So what do you
Just
all
don't
think?
forget that when you're done, you're gonna have to close both of them down. Just don't forget that.
Right. Okay. So what do we all like? What do we all think? Helen and Cheryl, I think you kind of agree with us, right? That almost certainly the parents are culpable.
Yeah. I think it was. I think she fell. I think she heard voices outside the apartment, climbed on the couch, and fell over the back of the couch. And I think the parents panicked and covered it up. I think they're culpable. Just my opinion. But yeah, that's what I think.
What about the theory that it happened days before, though?
I think that was me. I'm sorry. I opened up the other StreamYard to see if I could pop on there. Can you hear me on the other one? Or am I only on this one?
You can hear you in both, Lizzie.
Oh, okay. You don't need to see me. That's good.
What did you say, Rabid? Sorry.
What do you think about the theory that it happened days before, that she was gone at that point?
I was quite on the fence, but Lizzie's like the oracle when it comes to the facts. So I kind of think that if Lizzie thinks it happened before, it probably did.
Yeah, but what's important is that I don't I don't want people blindly believing me, although I absolutely stand behind what I say. I think it's important for you to really grab onto maybe something you hear at some point that I say that really clicks with you. That's important to me. I don't want anybody saying, well, you know, Lizzie believes it, so it must be true. I believe it to be true, but I think
I don't believe it. Just, you know, it's not like you've said the sky's pink and I believe you because you've said the sky's pink. I've listened to what you've said.
Yeah.
And there's a lot in there that can, you know, that makes a lot of sense, especially the register for the nursery, for the creche. That is probably the biggest thing that stood out to me. But I haven't researched it myself, so, you know, I am going on what you've said, but they're the facts that you've researched.
Yeah, and the creche, that's interesting that you say that, because the creche is, as I mentioned, something that only I had a light bulb moment of, I don't know, 4 years ago, and it just came to me, and that's what I'm saying. I don't make things fit. It was what stood out to me that I suddenly realized that this works, that this is what probably happened. I absolutely believe it. I've always not fought, but it's been very difficult for me to have people understand what I believe about something happening earlier, because Gonzalo Amaral was very specific about believing that she fell off the couch that night. But now he has claimed it's possible that something happened earlier. That really has changed everything. Not changed everything for me, but it does open up the fact that what I do believe is, well, I always believe it's what happened anyway.
Has Gonzalo come out with another book in the last kind of year or two? Is that right?
He's he had a book last fall, I think, and that's when he claimed that something could have happened earlier. I did send you actually the video. It's just a short minute video of Gonzalo. I don't know if you've got that. If it's possible to show that.
Yep.
Well, Lizzie, speaking of that really quick, so I think it's Spaniard 80 asks, and somebody else said that they would like to know too, is have you watched James Bogart's videos on the case? And if so, what you make of his theory?
That's interesting that you asked that, because when I was in the group, I don't think I really watched a lot. To be honest, I didn't have time to watch other people's videos. But I have watched some recently, and particular ones that have questioned another creator. I usually agree with him. Now, there was at one point that he did make a comment about me, because I don't think that he believes that something happened earlier. And I would have really liked to have had him on the channel to see, because he does have a different scenario. I don't think he believes that something could have happened earlier, and that's absolutely fine. But it's interesting. But what I have seen from him recently, he seems to, he did a lot of research too. From what I understand, he did a couple of years, 2 or 3 years research as well. So, I mean, I'm sure he's got the basics, but I really haven't had chance to watch all his videos, and he probably hasn't had chance to watch mine. So we may differ. I think but I really would like to have a chat with him, or have him on one of our lives. That would be great.
After you have Mark on, you have to have Mark on first.
It's like Richard Hall, I mean, he's done some great stuff on Madeleine McCann. But then,
yeah, and actually he used one of my videos on of my video clips on one of his I've forgotten which one it was, but it was when Maddie died. He used my research about the cleaner Fatima, who was the last ones that I believe saw Madeleine. So he's used that clip on one of his videos.
Yeah, but then when I look at his channel and I see that he's covering every possible conspiracy theory that you can imagine, he kind of loses credibility to me.
Well, this is the thing, and that is something which you know, I of course question, because like yourself, like many people, I'm not into conspiracies. So to have him use my research is one thing. He has different thoughts to me on so many different issues. My thoughts on my videos is that as long as I get the information out, that's all that's important to me. As you know, I don't look for any monetary value from anything. It's really and if that is one issue that gets my information out in that one, but he has done a great job, regardless of whether you agree with all his thoughts or anything. He's done a fantastic job on all those videos.
Definitely. I mean, he did a great like 3-4 hour documentary on the case.
And the great thing is he allows us all to use without any copyright whatsoever. You know, which is, I think that's really important.
How, like, Liz, how far do you think it goes though? Like, some people think that something very dark is going on with this case, right?
Yeah. That is something for many years. I didn't want to say or use that information publicly. I mean, we have used the Gasper statements, but I've never wanted to focus on that. And then a few years ago, Gonzalo Amaral started questioning the David Payne issue, and also, you know, with the Gasper statements. So I've been a little freer to mention it more, but it's still not something that we have proof of apart from hearsay, I guess. So I really don't like going down that road too much, although it's absolutely a possibility. And I
get that.
I don't even want to go there, you know, thoughts and that.
But we have to also acknowledge that it wasn't nothing, right? What he did and what he said was beyond the pale, really, right?
Yeah.
And
you mean the Gasper statements, or?
Yeah, the Gasper statements.
Okay, if you go to my channel and look for, I've forgotten what I've called it. Is it the crime of the century? And that is, if you Google HiDeHo 4 YouTube search crime of the century HiDeHo 4, you will come across the Gasper statements, along with Supertramp, which I'm sure you wouldn't be able to use today. And that describes the Gasper statements, which were pretty. It was two doctors who were on holiday with them the year before, and between Jerry and David Payne, they were making comments and gesticulations, is that the word, which were not very appropriate. And the unfortunate thing, and this is another reason that makes this case so crazy, is that the Gaspers, when they realized that David Payne was on holiday with them during the May week, they contacted at the end of May, they contacted the Leicestershire police and gave their statements about what they saw and what they were uncomfortable with, because apparently the men used to bathe the children, and at that point she wouldn't allow any of the others to bathe the children. That seems an odd thing anyway, but what was really, really questionable is that on October the 2nd, when Gonzalo Amaral was let go, so to speak, he was removed from that case, but he was the coordinator for all of southern Portugal. He wasn't taken off his duties, he was just taken off that case. So he returned to Faro to do his work for the rest of southern Portugal. But once he was removed, what happened within, I think within a month, the Portuguese police received a bundle of facts, and in between those facts that came through was the Gasper statements. And it is believed that one of the Leicestershire police or somebody in Leicester had just popped the Gasper statements in so that the Portuguese police could actually read them. And it's, you know, that is amazing. So thanks to that person who did that, because and that was after Gonzalo had left, so he couldn't, I think he knew about them, and I think that may have been the reason that he was taken from the case, because there was an issue that he was upset with the British police for not giving information, and I think that may have been it. I don't know, but it's possible.
Yeah, the someone in the British police managed to kind of hide it and get it through to the Portuguese judiciary, right?
Yeah, and it was major, because I mean, if the Portuguese police had that from the start, the investigation would have gone totally different, because there would have automatically, I am absolutely sure, been investigations into that. Now, they may have done investigations into it regardless, if they'd have known about it, as Gonzalo, but we don't know all the intelligence that went on during the course. As I was saying to you earlier, I believe that I've done the timeline myself from Monday to Thursday and beyond, and I have like a movie in my head of what happened during that week, and the things we're told and the things that are questionable. But I've only used the files, and I believe that there's 40,000 files, but at a guess, I would say that's only 5% of what actually went on, because look at all the hours and hours and hours of intelligence that were discussed and talked about and are not in the files. So, you know, I've done the best with what is in the files, but the Gasper statements are not something that Gonzalo ever publicly or in the files actually looked at.
There was another question in the chat a little bit ago. Someone asked if Maddie could see her mom and dad from the window.
Well, if that was the case, yes, she would have been able to see, and she would have, and this is something that could have happened another time, you know, not necessarily when Jerry was talking to Jez Wilkins. Maybe that's what did happen, is that she fell off the couch, the sofa. We don't know. We don't. That's a scenario that Gonzalo Amaral has claimed, that she was looking out the window to see her dad talking to Jez Wilkins. But who's to say that that didn't happen on another night? You know, if something did happen to her earlier. As I say, I don't believe they literally killed her. I don't think anybody has ever claimed that. But certainly there was an accident.
I think if you apply Occam's razor to this case, then the situation seems to be that Madeleine was put to bed at a certain time, and then she got up and was looking for her parents. And she fell down behind the sofa, right? That's where the
Yeah. Now, there's one thing which, if you look at the documentary, and anybody who hasn't watched Gonzalo Amoral's documentary, just look under banned in HiDeHo 4, is that at one point, now the cleaners came on the Wednesday, so they would have come Wednesday morning and made the beds. Gonzalo Amoral is seen pointing to the bed, saying it looks like nobody slept in the bed. And I think he realized that if it had been used 2 nights, you know, the Wednesday night and the Thursday night, that it would have looked a lot more crumpled. So I really do think that prior to the files being released, I think he did look to the possibility of something happening earlier. But in that video that I sent you, he does claim that something could have happened earlier, but they just haven't been able to explain how she was seen at the crash. That's why it's so important that I send my research to them. Sadly, I haven't been able to do that as of right now. I keep claiming I will this week, next week, but then once I've moved, hopefully next week. And I need somebody to send them directly to Gonzalo Amoral, because I've re-recorded them with Portuguese translations so that he can see it as well.
I think that's pretty impressive. That's a lot of dedication. I think that's one thing that obviously everybody knows about you and a lot of the people from your group. And there's a lot of people that have dedicated so much time to this. And I'm not hijacking your live, Robert. I'm just saying, you know, you asked earlier, and of course Helen started talking and I didn't get to talk. It's one of those things where I you know, heard the story, didn't know a whole lot of the details, but, you know, you talking about what if something happened a few days before, it's one of those like, holy crap moments. Like, you know, because the whole thing is if it happened that night, the timeline doesn't fit. How would they have time to clean this up and do this with her body and and it didn't make any sense. So that's why I think a lot of people went down the kidnapping route, because that was the easiest to explain. But you coming out and proposing that it had happened before that, then, you know, that night's timeline, that doesn't automatically, you know, clear them, the parents, from doing what, I don't know. You know, that's totally different story. But so I think that's, for me, that was like, man, you know, I'm glad I met you, Lizzie, because it never occurred to me. It never, and it's one of those things where it's like, oh, that would make sense, but it just never occurred to me.
Yeah, and if you really look at it, it's basically, it would have all happened within 3/4 of an hour. It couldn't. I mean, it couldn't. I've always stood behind what I've said, but as I say, when you look logically, there wasn't a reason to rush it so quickly. If that's what had happened, if they'd come home and found something had happened to Maddie, why would they rush it at that point? There is no reason. If they were going to do as we understand them to have done, to hide it, then of course they would have taken time. It wouldn't have had to have been that night. They could have said, okay, well, let's think about this and we'll and arrange an abduction, tomorrow or Thursday or whatever. So, I mean, that is logic, much more logic than trying to accomplish everything within that 3/4 of an hour. Especially if it included Jerry doing a fake trip down to the beach. And that's not to undermine those that believe that it actually happened. That's just my thoughts. But because I totally respect Pat Brown and her theories, because, like I say, she's a profiler. She has her knowledge and reasons, and she's been to Praia da Luz. I can only go with what I have found, which is a lot. And you know what? The whole case is so big that it's so difficult to encompass it within, a short period of time. As you know, Shirley, with doing the lives that we've been doing, it's just way beyond. In fact, to be honest, it would probably take a year of Maddie lives, should I say. But yeah. For those of you who click on that comment, but it would take, I mean, it's so involved. I've specifically kind of stayed around the timeline because that's what I researched. And at the time, I mean, like everybody else, I knew all the details, around that time and all the, I mean, the thousands and thousands of questions that we had about it, which elude me a little bit now because after 15 years, and I haven't actually been really totally involved in the case for the last 3 years for some reason, but it's whatever. When I was saying that don't believe me, don't blindly believe me, it's not because I question my research. I have absolute confidence in it. I've found nothing in 15 years to make me question it. And I am open. I'm absolutely open to anybody questioning any of my research. Because as I say, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, I don't want to be, I want the truth. I don't need to be right. And and that's why I've always enjoyed having people question me. Which happens a lot. Is anybody else around?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It does. And I saw a question, or not a question, but JC said something. Oh gosh, I wish she was here. She could say it again. I was glancing at the screen. This was earlier in the live. She said something like, what would the parents benefit from hiding the truth? So what is your thoughts on that?
Well, if you go back, as I said before, if you go back to 2007, when there wasn't a lot of social media, so I don't think they expected to have the sudden impact on publicly that it had. If you consider that and think, okay, they were here on holiday, and something happened to Maddie, and there's probably a lot of reasons, but one of them may have been that, well, here we want to just look at the possibility that the reason for hiding it was to hide something that was far greater. And if something had happened where they didn't want an autopsy done, then that would have been a good reason, if you can read between the lines there. Is that apparent without me actually saying anything?
I mean, it is to me. But again, I mean, I can say it, right? I mean, I know that you're part of a community that, you know, doesn't say things.
No.
But if they had given her something so she would sleep, and maybe, you know, that had some that would come out in the autopsy, but that alone, again, I mean,
no, I think what I'm trying to say, which I will say a little bit more, is when you look at the Gasper statements, when you look at the statements or the comments made by Jerry and David Payne, it is very possible, not probable, I have no idea, it might have nothing to do with it, but if she was subjected to anything that would be detrimental if there was an autopsy, then that would be an absolute reason for them not to want to call an ambulance and be open about it. They would want to hide that, because if that ever came out, that their lives would be finished.